A major endeavor to improve detox and addiction recovery services in Thunder Bay is about to reach the finish line. Good evening and thank you for joining us. St. Joseph's Care Group has spent the past year renovating and switching the services at 2 of its facilities. The Crossroads Center is now located in the former Balmoral Detox on Sibley Drive, which moved this winter into the larger Crossroads building on Oliver Road. St. Joe's staff say the switch will help them provide better services for those in their addiction recovery journey. Jessica Clement has the story.
Crossroads Center has found a new home at 667 Sibley Drive, switching places with St. Joseph's Care Group's withdrawal management services. The detox was moved this past winter into the Oliver Road building, and its new safe sobering beds opened there in March.
Where Crossroads was located, it was more space than what the program required to support individuals, and with withdrawal management in the space that they were in at the time, they were over capacity to meet the needs. So through that and through the planning, the decision was made and planning began to essentially swap sites for the programs.
Nicole Spivak with St. Joe's says construction at the former Balmoral Detox Center has been underway since December, and Crossroads staff and clients are excited for the new space. The facility will support up to 20 people at a time, providing pre- and post-treatment care with help from partners who will work with the individuals. Spivak says the need for recovery services in the community is rising and notes that partnerships allow them to meet the person wherever they're at on their journey.
We will continue to focus on developing connections to peers and community, and supporting through groups that cover topics as far as relapse prevention, and all of the skills to apply the insights that individuals who are with us post-treatment that they acquired during live-in treatment. We also have counseling support on site and work in partnership with Indo-Away Benessi for cultural services to the individuals that we serve.
The newly relocated Crossroads Center officially opens on Thursday, and clients are just starting to move into the new location. Spivak adds that the staff at the facility are honored to be part of people's journeys.
Part of these services, Crossroads have been offering recovery since 1965, has had a strong partnership with St. Joseph's Care Group throughout that period of time, but really looking at ways to meet individuals and provide that safe place and the opportunity for them to tell their story as they go through their own recovery journey.
Jessica Clement, TBT News.
The future of Thunder Bay's Alustin railcar plant was discussed at Queen's Park this week. Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles pointed to last week's revelation that more than half the local workforce, around 230 employees, will be laid off between now and September as a contract for 60 streetcars comes to an end. Stiles wanted Premier Doug Ford to explain what he's doing for those workers, but her questions were instead answered by the Transportation Minister.
Alustin workers are being laid off, and Ontario is facing a recession. And all this Premier has had to say about it is, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Workers in Thunder Bay have been waiting years and years for a decision on the Line 2 subway cars, and now they're facing layoffs on top of that. And let's not forget why that happened, why they're being laid off now. It's because this government made the decision to send those jobs from Line 1 down to the United States, while workers here lose out. So is this the message of the Premier to the people and the workers of Thunder Bay and their families? Is it that they should just sit tight?
The message to those workers in Thunder Bay is Premier Ford will always have your back. In fact, Madam Speaker, the Premier has personally visited that facility many times. Many members in this House and government members have visited that facility and reaffirmed our commitment to ensuring more jobs go to Thunder Bay. That is why we wrote a letter asking the TTC to direct that investment to Canadian Ontario-made jobs in Thunder Bay. That is why we have invested over $500 million of refurbishment money into that facility, Madam Speaker.
The contracts to refurbish GO trains should keep about 150 to 200 people working for the next 5 years. The $2.1 billion subway car contract, if awarded to Alstom, would create enough work for hundreds of additional employees at the plant for many years. Rising cases of measles across Canada and specifically in Ontario is the cause of concern at Queen's Park today. CTV's Siobhan Morris gives us the details on the spread of the disease and the discussions on the province's response.
The steadily rising case count of measles in Ontario has set off alarms at Queen's Park.
This is a crisis, and what I'm hearing from the minister and from folks here in the legislature today in response to our questions was a pretty laissez-faire response.
There have been over 1,200 infections since mid-October, concentrated in southwestern Ontario in communities where vaccine uptake is low. Most of those cases link back to a gathering in New Brunswick last fall.
This is a government that has thrown up its hands, implemented half-hearted, lukewarm measures, and is trying to convince us that they care and that they're doing something.
The government defending its strategy of making shots more available, a new $2 million public awareness campaign, and work behind the scenes by the Chief Medical Officer of Health.
Over a year ago, he directed public health units to refocus their efforts on childhood vaccinations.
Is that working?
I believe it is.
If the plan is working, why does Ontario have the largest outbreak in all of North America? Come on, be honest with people.
This afternoon, a plea from the Premier.
There's certain communities in Ontario, for religious reasons, are not getting their kids vaccinated. I encourage anyone and everyone, you need to get your kids vaccinated because if not, it just starts spreading.
The province's top doctor stresses measles isn't spreading in public schools, hospitals, or doctors' offices because 95% of Ontarians are covered by vaccines.
I should point out, though, in unvaccinated communities in the Southwest, so farming communities, rural communities, we are seeing active spread.
Dr. Kieran Moore concedes there's more outreach to do with those rejecting vaccines. For Doug Ford, the issue of religious exemptions is a tricky one.
But how do you force someone? Do you grab their kid and start jabbing them with a needle? It's a problem. I agree. But we're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this.
Dr. Moore says even if a student has an exemption for the measles vaccine, if the virus crops up at their school, they'll be forced to stay home until the measles is gone. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Thunder Bay police have made 2 arrests after a man was brought to the regional hospital on April 28th with serious injuries from an assault. Police have now arrested a 46-year-old man and a 40-year-old man and charged them with aggravated assault. They remain in custody. Meanwhile, Nishnawbe police have also laid aggravated assault charges against a 19-year-old man, or after a 19-year-old man was attacked in Casablanca Lake on Friday. 2 males aged 18 and 15 were arrested by NAPS officers and remain in custody. After all that snow we had in April, it's been a slow start to the forest fire season in the Northwest. But MNR officials have started seeing more blazes pop up around the region so far in May. Fire Information Officer Chris Marchand says the warmer, drier weather means the fire season is starting to heat up.
Well, presently we have 4 active fires in the Northwest region, and we expect to see more added to the list in the coming days. And thus far in the season, we've seen a total of 19 fires in the Northwest region. And, at the moment, we have a sort of elevated level of concern in places such as Kenora, Fort Frances, Dryden, Sioux Lookout, and Red Lake for grass fires that have the potential to get into the standing timber.
One of those blazes, known as Kenora Fire 11, broke out yesterday afternoon near Clearwater Bay. Fire crews from around the area managed to bring that one under control by this morning. Another small forest fire north of Thunder Bay in the Lappy area is also considered to be under control as of last night. The fire hazard around the region currently ranges from medium to high. Marchand says that could rise to high to extreme by this weekend.
The next week or the next 5 days, or until we get some meaningful rain here in the Northwest, we're really urging members of the public to be very cautious with any sort of outdoor burning activity, or ideally to avoid such activities at this time of elevated fire danger. Spring fires can move quite quickly in high winds.
Volunteer firefighters were called to a stubborn blaze this afternoon in Gillies Township. The fire started in a hay bale, but then spread and caused a closure of a portion of Highway 595. The fire broke out at around 1:30 this afternoon on a rural property along the highway near the corner of Neva Road. It appears the fire in the hay bale spread to a shed and some vehicles, causing a lot of smoke and some minor damage. The fire was eventually contained by Gillies fire crews with help from Nalalu and Nebing firefighters. A total of 4 pumpers, 2 tankers, 3 rescue vehicles, 2 command trucks, and 20 firefighters responded to the call. The homeowner was assessed on the scene, but there were no injuries. The cause of the fire is still unknown. The Port of Thunder Bay's 2025 shipping season is off to a solid start. Cargo shipments from late March to April 30th were 11% higher than the 5-year average. However, the 1.3 million metric tons of total cargo didn't quite match the same time period from 2024, a year which turned out to be the best port season, or the busiest, since the late 1990s. Ryan Graham reports.
Despite the overall numbers being slightly down from this time last year, port officials are anticipating another strong season for cargo shipments to and from Thunder Bay. 4 or 5 ships were visible sitting in the local harbor this week. The first 5 weeks of shipping activity has already seen more than 1 million tons of grain being loaded, and 59 total ship visits so far this year.
So far, we've had a good start to the 2025 shipping season. We got off to a slightly earlier start than normal, which always is an advantage. Towards the end of March there, the harvests on the prairies have been really on an upward trend, due in large part to technological advancements in the actual farming of those products. So the port has been playing an increased role in moving that product to market over the last 10 years or so.
Fortunately, Heikkinen says the new tariffs from the U.S. are not having a major impact on our port activity, as Thunder Bay is mainly an east-west market as opposed to a north-south one, with ocean vessels heading to and from Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, and South America. Grain is by far our largest export. However, cargo ships in and out of Thunder Bay transport many other items such as potash, phosphate fertilizer, and steel pipe, to name a few.
One thing I'd like to highlight is some of the stuff we've got going on here at Kiefer Terminal. So our organization operates Kiefer, and the goal here is to bring in inbound cargoes to kind of offset some of those significant exports. And any ship that we can bring into Kiefer with an inbound cargo creates additional capacity to take back those grains and potash exports.
What remains clear is that Thunder Bay port shipments continue to highlight high supply chain efficiency. Ryan Graham, TBT News.
One of the most accomplished people to ever come out of the Lakehead is now featured in a Heritage Minute commercial airing across Canada. Bora Laskin became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in 1973 and is generally considered one of the greatest legal minds in Canadian history. The vignette, starring acclaimed Canadian actor Victor Garber, touches on his upbringing in Fort William, which led to an inspiring career in law.
For our neighbors, Bora, we should always do what we can. It's our responsibility.
Bora, your desire to ignore the legal precedent is preventing us from moving forward in this.
Moving forward is precisely what I believe we must do.
The Heritage Minute was produced by Historica Canada and also touches on Laskin's early struggles finding work as a Jewish lawyer and educator. He was named to the Supreme Court in 1970 and became Chief Justice 3 years later. His legal influence helped shape a new era for Canadian civil liberties. Laskin served on the top court for 14 years until passing away in 1984 at age 71.
There is no just reason to treat the wife's contribution to the farm as any less significant than the husband's.
Bora Laskin, the first Jewish Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, fought for fairness and civil rights for all Canadians.
Laskin also served as Chancellor of Lakehead University from 1971 until 1980. His name can still be found on 2 buildings at the university, the Bora Laskin Education Building on the main campus and the Bora Laskin Facility of Law building in the former PACI High School. And we'll now turn our attention to the weather. And Fiona, it was another lovely day in my opinion, not nearly as warm as yesterday, but still nice.
That's not opinion, that's fact. That is definite fact. It was not as warm. Lots of sunshine, but temperatures were 10 degrees cooler than today. Yesterday, a high of 22. Today, just a high of 12. And again, normal for this time of year is around the 15, 16 degree range. So it was quite a drop. Winds were from the northeast, 15 to 35 kilometers per hour, although we did stay above the freezing mark last night. Now, if we take a look at what's going on across the region, sky-wise, kind of dull, lots of sunshine. Although Greenstone and Armstrong were under clouds all day until about 1 hour ago, and then it just cleared out, and they're looking at clear skies for tonight and tomorrow. Temperature-wise, there is a big difference. There is a lot of cold air coming from the northeast. There's a huge system that's just radiating cold air, and that's why we've got much cooler temperatures in Greenstone, Marathon, Wawa, and even into Armstrong. All you have to do is hop just a little bit further to the west, and we're back into 12 Celsius, 16, 17 Celsius. So that is going to be a trend that's going to continue, that cold air moving in from the northeast for the next 24 hours. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, we are going to see more clear skies and drop down to a low of 0. Winds, however, are going to be very light. And unfortunately, if you found today a little bit too cold, you're probably not going to like tomorrow because it's actually going to get a little bit cooler. However, all we have to do is wait until Friday and we'll be back up in those 20s again. It's that up and down seesaw temperatures of spring.
Not bad. I'm ready for the seesaw. I'll take it. Thank you, Fiona.